What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word? Hummingbird. Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Married at First Sight Australia, Season 9, Episode 3. So we have another couple. This would be couple number 5, I think. And it is Andrew, 39, and Holly, 36. So Holly's biological clock is ticking. The first thing she tells us is that, she is in a rush to start a family of her own. She's 36 years old and she doesn't understand why she hasn't been able to have a family at this point. She said that she never imagined herself being 36, not married, and childless. Andrew is a motivational speaker, he's a life coach, and those are the kind of professions that I really kind of sort of question because anybody can say they're a motivational speaker, anybody can say they're a life coach. These type of careers or positions don't really require you don't have to have like a college degree or a master's or any kind of specialization or credentials. Anybody can practically say that they're a life coach or motivational speaker. So that kind of, to me, that's like a kind of like a gray area when it comes to employment. If somebody told me that they were a motivational speaker or that they were a life coach, especially if it was someone that I'm going to be partnering with, the first thing that I'm going to want to see is some credentials. I want to see how serious you are about this, because this is sort of giving me unemployment vibes. But anyways, moving on. So he does have a daughter, and he is definitely a country boy at heart. He is actually from Dallas, Texas, and this is going to be like a big deal to Holly and her family, the fact that he's from Texas, which I found very interesting. He ended up in Australia because he met a girl. I think he met her in Texas a few years ago, and he followed her to Australia. She was Australian, I'm assuming. He followed her to Australia, and it didn't work out, and so he ended up just staying in Australia. He's been married 2 times before. He knew he made a mistake with his first marriage on the day of the wedding because as she walked down the aisle, he realized that he really wasn't happy. He's really open to having another child, which is good because Holly definitely wants to have children of her own. Holly herself, she never thought that she would be 36, like I said before, without a husband or children. She feels like a failure because she doesn't have her own family. She took a blood test actually to see where her fertility level was at, and she said that it didn't look good. So she didn't really expound on that. I'm just assuming that at being 36, being a woman of a certain age, maybe her egg reserve is low or her egg quality is low. I don't know, but I wish she would have given us more details on why they concluded that her fertility was not looking good. Because 36, I don't consider that extremely old to have children. I don't think being in your 40s is old to have children. I understand the risks of when you're older. It takes a little bit longer probably to become pregnant, and maybe you'd be considered high risk because of your age, but not necessarily so. A lot of people over 35 have healthy pregnancies and healthy children. So I needed her to give more information on why she was told that her fertility wasn't looking good. She knows that her urgency to have a family can kind of scare men away, but luckily she's going to be actually married, so he can't be scared away. They're supposed to be in a committed lifelong relationship, so hopefully that won't scare him away. Plus the fact that he does want to have more children. She is a big believer in the power of manifestation. She says things, I think they're called affirmations. She's constantly saying affirmations to herself. I am capable of giving and receiving love. She says this over and over and over throughout her segment. She has a vision board. I guess when you visualize your goals, it's much easier to make them come true. She also writes the things that she wants out of life on pieces of paper or post-its, and she puts them all over her house. So she's a big believer in manifestation. I'm just curious to know, how long has she been a believer in manifestation? Because if she's been doing this for 20 years, then maybe she needs to think of plan B, because she still hasn't really gotten the things that she really wants out of life. But if she just started it, then it looks like it's working pretty fast because she's on Married at First Sight, about to get married. So on the day of their wedding, I liked his suit. His suit was nice because I think it was a dark colored suit. So I'm a big fan of dark colored suits for weddings. And Andrew says that he's been manifesting a partner for a very long time. And he said the word manifesting. So I'm thinking to myself, that's right up Holly's alley. Now, when he's standing at the altar, he's having like a conversation with her mom, and he mentions that he said he's from the United States and he's from the South, and the mother-in-law says, "Oh, I hope just as long as it's not Texas." And I was like, "Wow, what's wrong with Texas?" Stereotyping much, like what's wrong with Texas? And so he actually said that he was from Texas, from Dallas, Texas, born and raised, and the mom had a look of like fear on her face. So she walks down the aisle, Holly does, and she looks really pretty. She's a very attractive woman. I thought that her dress could have been a little bit more interesting, but it was very ordinary, very run-of-the-mill type of wedding gown. But she did look nice overall. She had the long veil that covered her face, and when she got to the altar, he had to help her actually uncover her veil. So in her voiceover, as she's, we're seeing her walking down the aisle and approaching the altar, her voiceover on the show, she keeps on saying over and over again, "I am capable of giving and receiving love." And she says this literally, y'all, probably like 20 times. And it got to the point where I wanted to throw the remote at my television just to make her be quiet. He's very pleased with her. He finds her very attractive, and she thinks that he's attractive as well. She did make a comment about his big blue eyes, so that was good. So the initial attraction was definitely there for them. So they exchanged their vows, and when she said her own personal vows to him, she mentioned wanting to have a family, and he really liked that because he has a daughter, and so he wants someone who is, open to having her own children and definitely accepting of his child. So they're having dinner. It's her and him, her mom, her two sisters at the dinner table, and I think he had two friends with him. And there's this issue of him being Texan, not even just him being American, but him being Texan. Like, they're taking some serious offense to that. They automatically assume that he owns guns, that he's a Trump supporter. So I was like, are we stereotyping much here? Because you can't, it's just dumb to assume that. But he cleared his name. He said that he was not a Trump supporter. He did not, like, his political leanings were not going that way. And did he own guns? I think he said he didn't own guns. Whatever he said to them, it gave them like a huge sigh of relief that he wasn't what they thought he was. So he defied their stereotypes. So they take care of all this Texas stuff. They asked him, what brought you to Australia? He tells them that he came for a woman, but it didn't work out. He decided to stay. And I think he's been living in Australia for like 6 years. He said, she asked him if, and he kind of like has to stay because his daughter lives there. So yeah, he kind of has no choice but to stay in Australia. And she's very accepting of him being a father, so she's okay with him having a child. So then when they have their one-on-one conversation, this is when she finds out that he's not like a conservative, because they have a conversation, just the two of them alone, and she's kind of fishing around to see, where his political beliefs lied, and he said that he wasn't a Trump supporter. So the next day on their honeymoon, there's a discussion about his daughter, and they're having breakfast together at the table, and this was my first sense that something wasn't quite right about Andrew. So they're having breakfast at the table, and they're talking about children and family, and he's talking about his daughter, and then she's conversing with him, and as she's talking, he tells her, he's like, "Wait a minute, just stop, wait a minute." And he's having a moment, and he actually starts crying, and she gets up and she hugs him and she comforts him and wipes his tears away, and he's talking about how he really misses his daughter, and he's thinking about his daughter. And then she tells him, some words of encouragement, like, you're a really good dad, and so on and so forth, something to that effect. And to me, it just didn't seem genuine when he was crying like that. It seemed like he was purposely trying to create a vulnerable moment to kind of make her feel more comfortable with him, so that he can later on get closer to her, if you pick up what I'm putting down. So I just kind of felt it was sort of manipulative, that whole scene. I want to believe that it was genuine, and I'm probably 100% wrong. It could have been very, very genuine, where he was thinking about his child and this caused him to cry. But as soon as it started, it ended. Like as soon as he felt like he had reeled her in with these fake emotions, he was okay again. So later on, they're in the hot tub, and he comes into the hot tub completely naked. He just walks in there naked. Like, you don't even know each other a full 6 hours, or it's been 24 hours, right? Okay, you've known each other barely 24 hours, and she's already in the hot tub waiting for him. Or is it the bubble bath? I think it was a bubble bath, whatever it was. And he walks in there with not a stitch of clothing on. I was like, okay, Andrew, I guess your tears of manipulation worked. Moving on to Cody and Selena. Cody is 30 and Selena is 33 years old. When I realized that she was 33, I was kind of shocked because she likes to put on this act of being really immature. But anyways, so Selena, she's Asian. She's of Asian descent, but her and her family grew up in a white community. And she said that she's always felt excluded or left out. Her parents immigrated from Cambodia. She's the black sheep of the family. She's the rebel. She didn't do the traditional, what her parents expected her to do, which is go to college and become a lawyer, doctor, whatever, engineer. Instead, she dropped out of college and she got into the business of being a hairstylist. And from what it sounds like, it seems to be, working out for her pretty well. It seems like she works at a salon, and she also does hair for brides or for women for special occasions. She also fixes hair on that end as well. So Cody, he's very adventurous. He's a traveler. He's traveled the whole wide world, and he's tired of being alone, and he wants to settle down. Now, the most pivotal thing about Cody is when he talked about his father dying suddenly of a heart attack when he was 15 years old. And this was obviously very life-changing, not only because he's losing a parent, but because of when his father passed away, he was, at that cusp of becoming a man. And now you've lost your father, someone who was going to teach you and guide you into manhood. Now that is completely gone. So I'm pretty sure that was very devastating to him. And he still kind of like suffers the effects of that. Obviously, it hasn't stopped him from living and doing his thing, but you can tell that it still affects him till this day with him being an adult. So they have a nighttime wedding, and their wedding is like in the middle of the woods, which I thought was very strange. So they get married in the middle of the woods in the dead of night. And I liked the color of his suit, but it looked like his suit was velvet, and that bothered me. So I'm not 100% sure, but I saw some velvety textures on his suit, and I really didn't care for that. And his bow tie definitely looked velvet. Didn't care for that at all. Her dress was really nice. It fit her really well. It was just very classic, very clean. It was a nice dress. She thinks that he is absolutely adorable. And I realized that when she had given him the compliment, I think she said he was adorable, he did not return a compliment back to her. And I was waiting for him at some point during the ceremony or after the ceremony for him to give her some type of a compliment, and he never did. So, and then we soon find out why. So he thinks that she's quirky, and she's very bubbly. She's very hyper. She's very, she's constantly smiling. She's constantly talking. She's constantly distracted, because when they were at the altar and they were like, getting to know each other, all of a sudden she got distracted by an owl in a tree. So she's got a short attention span, it seems like, but she's super, super bubbly, super, super vivacious. She's a ball of energy, and that was way too much for him. He was completely overwhelmed by her, and he wanted her just to calm the hell down. So they exchanged their vows, and then when it came time for her to recite her vows to him, the vows that she wrote for him, she found a way somehow or another to mention her bunions. Now it all flowed. It went with whatever she was talking about, like accepting me and all of my bunions or something to that effect. But I was like, wow, I've never heard of someone including their bunions in their wedding vows. That was pretty interesting. So, They take their photos, and he says that her bubbliness is just too much for him. He says, I'm doing good, but I'm not doing that great. He says, I'm very worried that she's going to dive in quickly. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but he was terrified of her. So that they're having dinner, and the first thing that she mentions, as soon as they sit down at the dinner table, and it's just the two of them, they had no family members, no friends at their wedding. And I wonder if her family didn't come because they didn't approve, because her parents did say that they did not approve of this process at all, of her trying to find a husband through this television show. So as soon as they sat down, she says, I hope we should get matching tattoos. And of course, he was petrified of that. He said that he had a roommate and she lived alone. And then she mentioned to him that she doesn't believe that you should live with anyone that is not your partner. So she doesn't believe in roommates. She asked him about kids, like was he planning on having kids, or did he want children? And he kind of gave like a very hesitant, sure, or yeah, I guess, or something like that. It wasn't very convincing. Or maybe he didn't answer at all, but whatever his response was, it wasn't convincing that he was looking forward to having children. Definitely not looking forward to having children with her. So she's aware that she can come off a little bit too strong. And I'm like, girl, if you are aware of it, then why don't you fix it? Why don't you, change your ways if you are aware that the way you're acting can be a little bit off-putting? Because like I said, she's very, very bubbly. She's 33 years old, but she acts like she's 13. And for a grown, mature man who's looking for a wife, yeah, that can be kind of a turnoff. So he tells her about his father passing away, and she gave her condolences to that. And then she talked about her family and how she's like a big disappointment to her parents, because she's gonna, she wants to live her life her own way and not the way they think that they think that she should live her life. So at that moment, when they were talking about their families and their parents, she calmed down a whole lot, and he kind of was more in tune with her. He was able to relate with her when she had calmed down just a little bit. So he liked that part of her. The next morning, they're preparing for their honeymoon. They're packing their bags, getting ready to take off to I don't know where. And he said that the initial attraction for her just wasn't there. And there's no spark. He doesn't feel any kind of physical draw towards her, just absolutely nothing, just flat. And he was hoping that it would get easier, but it hasn't, or it didn't. And I thought to myself, but Cody, this is like day 2 of your marriage. Give it some time. Most likely it won't get easier, but give it some time. Not just, don't give up on day 2. So I don't know where they were at. They're at a hotel. I don't know if it was at their destination or where their honeymoon was going to be at, or if they were still where they got married. I'm not sure, but they're in a hotel room, and they have a box of questions. It's called the Honeymoon Box, I think, and it's just a box of questions to get to know each other better. And Selena got emotional when she was talking about her family and disappointing her parents. I guess there was some type of question about that. And then Cody, he pulled a question that said, "Are you attracted to me?" And she responded very quickly, very enthusiastically. She was like, "Yes." And then she goes, "Well, are you attracted to me?" And it took him a very long time. And so I was like, are you doing this on purpose? Like the long pause before he responded, not knowing what to say, hemming and hawing, like, well, like, are you doing this on purpose? Like to make her feel bad? Like, why don't you have a little bit more tact? But he was like, well, that's a really good question. And he says to her that he's struggling with having a physical attraction for her. He says, you're gorgeous, but I'm not going to use the words that he used, but his body is just not coordinating with his head. And she was like, well, wow, that kind of hit her hard. And in her confessional, she even said that was like a slap in the face. So this thing about attraction, or married at first sight, that for sure the experts in America on the American version, and I'm assuming also with the Australian version, they always stress that attraction comes with acts of kindness, acts of love, acts of affection. If you don't feel something for someone initially, it doesn't mean that your marriage is a disaster. It's okay to not feel that instant physical attraction, the butterflies in your stomach, your heart skipping a beat, your blood rushing. It's perfectly okay if you don't feel that when you first see your spouse. But if you want to feel that way, if you see enough in your partner that you feel like, you know what, I don't feel this attraction, but I know this person is a good match for me. This is the kind of person that I need as a partner because, they check all the boxes that I'm looking for. Then you have to work at it. You have to do the acts of love, receive the acts of love, and hopefully, because you realize how good this person is to you and how much they care about you and how much they feel for you, hopefully, when you see all of that, the attraction will follow because you're falling in love or you're becoming attracted to a really good human being who is down for the cause, who's down for you, who's your number one cheerleader, who's, trying to be the love of your life. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. But a lot of people on Married at First Sight are just stuck on the physicality. It's like, okay, if I'm not attracted, then this is it. I'm just waiting for the day for me to make my decision to get the hell out of here. They don't put in the work, they don't care, they don't try. And they're missing out on good opportunities for a lot of them. And then the ones who have this very crazy attraction for each other, sometimes it ends up that that's all they have and their marriages are still doomed. Moving on to Celine and Anthony. This was one of our earlier couples and we're basically seeing, where they're at now. How are they getting along? They're on their honeymoon. And I have to say that Celine has taken a complete 180 as far as I'm concerned because I actually liked her. And that first time that I saw her, that first episode, I don't know if it was episode 1 or 2, I actually did like her. This is the couple where each of them has a child. They're both parents. But in this episode, she wasn't hitting at all. First of all, they show us a scene where they are unpacking their car, taking out their luggage. They've arrived at their hotel or their suite or their resort or whatever it is that they're going to be staying in for their honeymoon. And he's helping her take the luggage out. And she says, "Oh, I can do it myself." And so, the show is like, or the voiceover on the show is like, well, she had requested specifically to have like an old fashioned kind of guy, someone who's very chivalrous, who has, old fashioned values. And he was helping her take out these heavy luggages, but she was like, no, I can do it myself. So that kind of made me think, okay, she's like losing interest in him or she's not interested in him because if she was, she would play that whole damsel in distress thing where she'd be like, oh my God, thank you so much, for him helping her. But she was like, no, I can do it myself. And then when they get to their room, she wanted a bath drawn for her, I guess. And so he drew this bath for her. And then there was this big thing about the temperature of the water. Like he was really worried if the water was going to be hot enough or too cold or whatever. He was worried about getting the temperature just right. And I'm like, did she stress that? Was that something that was like a do or die thing for her, like a deal breaker if her bath water isn't the right temperature? So she comes into the bathroom and she tests the water with her hand and she says, well, it's a bit hot, but it'll eventually cool down. And he was like, oh man, like he really felt disappointed in himself that he didn't get the temperature right. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why is that a big deal about the water temperature? So she gets ready to get in the tub. And so she closes the door, she shuts him out, and she gets into the tub by herself, which was like, okay, weren't y'all supposed to be doing this together? Like, or maybe she's taking a real bath and she's not trying to get all romantical or something. I don't know. But that was really odd. And it kind of was like giving us a hint that, there might be some trouble in paradise or something. I don't know. But I thought that was really bizarre, the whole thing with the water temperature. Yeah, so that is my review. Thank you so much if you made it this far, 23 minutes in. I do appreciate it that you chose to spend your time with me. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video and please don't forget to subscribe. And I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.